Hello, we welcome you to another R language primer chapter in our series Learn Data Science. Today we'll talk about functions which are used in any computer language. When we use a computer language, we have to write commands to carry out the operations. If we are in the same program and repeating the commands, then in the earlier chapter we had a look at loops. But if the code has to be repeated in a different program, then the easiest way to do it is to write functions which can be called into any program and executed. R as a language has a number of ready-made functions. That is, they are already available as part of the many libraries. What we mean by a function library is a collection of functions. These few of those will get installed by default when you install R. The remaining have to be either downloaded and called when the program starts or installed at a time when the program is running. Arguments, which are values, can be passed to functions, and functions in turn, after they finish their arithmetic or logic processing, can return the results back to the part of the program where the function was called. Users can also write their own functions using the keyword function. To write a function, the syntax is you have a function name and then you assign the output of the value of the function called function. The arguments are the values which the function receives when you call the function. And within the curly braces or face brackets, the logic for the function, or what we have written there as a function body, has to be written. Built-in functions can be called directly when the user is writing his programs. For example, sequence, which is SQ, mean, which is the arithmetic mean of values, sum, which is the arithmetic sum of the values. They are all ready-made functions. So we take a few examples where we are using the print function to print out the value of a sequence of numbers between 11 and 20. We are printing the sum of numbers between 1 and 10, and we are printing the mean of the numbers between 1 and 10. So the output should be 11 to 20 from the sequence function, 55 from the sum function, and 5.5 from the mean function. You can see that in the program we have run each of these statements and the output is shown from the R console. You can also use the R Studio. In case you need to know how to install the R, please see our first chapter where we have talked about how to download and install it. For user-defined functions, we need to write our own code. So we take some examples. We are trying to write a function where we are squaring the numbers in sequence. So our function is called squares.function. So going back to the syntax, which we saw in an earlier slide, we have the function name, then we assign the output of the function called function with the arguments and the code. So coming back to this same example of squaring the numbers, our function is called squares.function. We have assigned the output of the value function. N is the argument which is going to receive the value. And then we have run a for loop. And the for loops were discussed in the earlier chapter. For I in 1 to n, colon is the equivalent of 2. Sn is what we are called the where we are storing the output of the numbers, the squares. 1, we are raising each value of I to the power 2. So we have the I, the circumflex, and the 2. And then we print Sn. Now this loop will execute for values of I ranging from 1 to whatever value the function received as n. Suppose we send 5, the loop is from 1 to 5. If it is 10, the loop is from 1 to 10. and then we call the function, we know it's called squares dot function, with an argument phi to illustrate how the function executes. So when we call the function, we get squares of all the numbers between 1 and 5. So we have 1, 4, 9, 16 and 25. Now we have the output coming to us in the R console. We can also have the output from the R studio. As you can see in the output, you can see the function being typed in. Then the function is called as squares dot function with the argument 5. You can also have arguments, functions without arguments, in which case we don't really pass any value to the function, but the function already has some predetermined code. The output of the predetermined code is returned by the function to the value which called it. So in our example, we have a no_args function. It's called no.args.func. And this function has just for I in 1 to 5, print the square of I. We call the function without any arguments. So we should get the same answers because our loop is now fixed as 1 to 5. So as you can see, the function has been typed in and we have called the function without any arguments. So the output will show us the values 1, which is the square of 1, 4, square of 2, 9, square of 3, 16, square of 4 and 25, square of 5. We can also call a function with multiple arguments. They can be matched by position or assigned to the names of the arguments if there is no one-to-one match when we call the function. So we have called this example as multiple args function, mult.args.func. The function takes 3 arguments, p, q and r. The return value called answer multiplies the q into r and then adds the value p. In arithmetic, the precedence is exponential first, multiplication next, division after that, addition and then finally subtraction. We can override these default order by using braces or brackets to force another operator to have a precedence over an earlier operator. So we're going back to this example. We can call the function in 2 ways. One, we give the arguments in the order of the arguments. So if the arguments are 1, 2, p, q and r, we are passing the values 1, 2, 3, which will become 1 the value for p, 2 the value for q, 3 the value for r. Or we could also call this function by specifically saying that p should take the argue 3, q should take the argument 2, and r should take the value 1. Let's try both out. In the earlier case, we should get a 7, and in the second case, we should get a 5. For those who have joined us, we see we have q into r, then we are adding the p. Remember, there are no brackets here, so the multiplication takes priority over addition. So we have 2 into 3, which is 6, plus 1 is 7. The other we have 2 into 1, which is 2, plus 3, which is 5. As you can see, the same example has been run in the R console. You can also run it in R Studio, and the output has been shown to you where we get the value 5 and we get the value 7. We can also have functions with default arguments. What we are trying to say is, if a function is called with argument values, those values are used in the body of the function when the logic is executed. Or if we call this function without arguments, without argument values, then the default argument values are taken up and processed. So in our example, we have called the function p with the arguments p equal 5 and q equal 6, where if we call the function with arguments, it will take whatever arguments we have passed to the function. Otherwise, the first value will be 5, second value will be 6, even if no arguments are received. So with the function for default arguments, we called it as def.args.func. where P has a default value of 5, Q has a default value of 6. The answer is we are multiplying these two values and printing the answer. To illustrate the example, we call the function without arguments. Then it will simply be 5 into 6 because they are the default arguments. Then you call the function with the new values for the arguments, which will be 2, 3. Then it would be 6. It would be multiplied and shown to us. So we have the value 30, which is 5 into 6, and we have the value 6, which is 2 into 3. You can see the output from the R console, where you're calling the function without arguments and calling the function with arguments. Then the arguments of the function are evaluated only when used in the function body. For instance, if you have 3 arguments in a function and only 2 are used in the function body, then the third argument is not really considered by the runtime support. So it may have a value, it may not have a value. Let's take an example. We have called it myFunds, which is the function my.funds, where there are 2 arguments to the function P and Q. We have said print the square of P, that's P into 2, not the square, double the value of P into 2, and then we said print Q. And we are calling this function with only one argument, myFunds, and the argument is 5. So the output in the first case would be 10, as you can see from the program logic, it's P into 2. Second, we print the value of P, which is 5. But when we try to print the value of Q, we end up with an error which says argument Q is missing with no default. You can see the output from the R console, it's showing us the same thing. So we need to understand that we can call these functions without values, without arguments, with arguments, or take default arguments, or send only our own specific argument. Great work. You have completed another chapter from our series Learn Data Science. Please remember you can always revisit this video or any of our earlier videos. As we move on, we will be going into the little more difficult chapters. So we want you to revisit and revise as much of the R as we have learned so far. Please feel free to mail us at dadamscientia@gmail.com. We also would like you to leave the feedback on the YouTube page and also give us your likes so that we get more following. Trust yourself, you know more than you think you do. Till the next video, we are signing off now.